This episode is brought to you by Freestyle Photographic Supply. What could I do? What could I do? Yeah. So sometimes you just need to get a little creative. And me being a photographer means that I love seeing images displayed. Not just mine, but mostly mine, because I'm vain. But if you had the pleasure of shooting some slide film in such a large format like 4x5, you know that looking at that film against the light just hits differently. If you don't know what slide film is, it's okay. It's basically another type of film that you can shoot, resulting in a positive image. Being able to project that photo, or being seen without having to invert it in the computer. Being able to check out those lovely, luscious colors of slide film physically in front of you is world class. It's a high like none other, and it's also kind of expensive. For years now, I've always wanted to make a little light box illuminating one of my 4x5 slides and make it more than just a picture, but kind of an art piece. But what's better than a dinky little 4x5 light box?
A fucking lamp. Yeah, that's right.
A light your dark night lamp. Now that's an art piece, baby. So let's make a lamp. So the idea is simple. Get a lamp that you can house multiple 4x5 positives to be able to use as a lampshade so that you can see all your beautiful images against the light of the lamp. In theory, it's great. In practice, it's a bit harder than you think. A, because slide film is, for the most part, transparent in the highlights, so you can more or less see through them, resulting in you staring directly into a bright-ass light bulb, burning the image right into your retinas. I mean, maybe that's fine with you, but I kind of want to take more pictures in my lifetime. And B, transferring different images onto slide film might prove to be a little tricky. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We need to find a lamp first. Are you kidding? I'm not going to the store. I'm going to shop online like everyone else. So I think this REM tag lamp is going to be perfect. See, you have these lips right here, and the negative I think can go very nicely in there. So I think this is our lamp. So let's add to cart. Boop. Cool. So now that we have the lamp selected, what else do we need to complete this project? 1. The thinnest plexiglass we can find. 2. Frosted window privacy film. 3. Of course, some 4x5 slide sheet film. And 4. A light bulb. Now, as for the tools needed, you'll need scissors, a fabric ruler, a heat gun, or a hair dryer, tape, iPad, 4x5 camera, light meter, copy stand. Oh, and money because, well, this ain't cheap. Honestly, this might be my most expensive lamp that I own. But it's okay, because it's for fun, film, and art. Fat.
Let's get to it.
So now that we have this IKEA light built, we're gonna go to the next stage. We're going to have to diffuse the light a little bit. See, if you look at the negative here, you'll see that you see the light and the post through that negative, and I don't want that. It came with this diffusion, but what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take a piece of plexiglass here and a frosted diffusion thing for like windows, and I'm gonna diffuse the light so that I can see the negative through that diffusion glass here, making it project the positive. Now, to create that frosted look inside our lamp, the first thing we need to do is measure and cut the plexiglass. So, step 1, let's grab some measurements. We're measuring the height and the diameter of the lamp's intersection. This is where we will be placing the plexiglass. It's about 4 1/4. So 4 1/4 high, 27 inches around. And now that we have those numbers and measurements, let's transfer them onto our plexiglass and cut it down to size. It's good to be kind of precise, but at the end of the day, those edges will be hidden, and because of those two ridges, it will help the plexiglass stay in place. Okay, look at that. And with that film on there, I think that's gonna work really well. Now, obviously there's this pinch in the back you can't see right here. There's this pinch. And I'm gonna have to figure out how to close that up a little bit so that it doesn't like mess with the vibe of the rest of this, but this is pretty perfect, I think. Let's see, maybe like this.
Now it's time to add the frosted look to diffuse the light and the posts. So cut a piece of frosted film that's a little bit bigger than your plexiglass. Oversize is completely good for now since we'll be trimming that later. Make sure to apply the film carefully and smooth out all those bubbles as best as possible. I had to kind of do it a few times to make it look halfway decent, and even then, there was bubbles. And then trim those edges for a clean finish. Next, we're gonna mold the plexiglass to fit the lamp. So grab a heat gun or that hair dryer and start warming it up. I kind of bent it into place and just aired it around. This heat makes the bad boy flexible, so you can shape it a little bit more easily. Now use some tape on the back to hold it in shape while fitting it into the lamp's inner slot. Here, make sure you use some clear tape. You don't want to see any gray blobs behind the light. Now, once you have the whole thing in place and you put the top back on, you want to keep heating it to mold that shape a little bit further. I'd make sure to focus your heat maybe around that back joint to help mold those two ends together. And I wouldn't worry, it's just the back, so it can kind of look like shit.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, so now that we are done putting together the base of our lamp and the diffusion, let's go into the computer, or iPad in my case, and lay out the images so that you know what order to put them in. So when I went through my image catalog, I picked out 8 images I know I wanted to include in the final piece. These images were anything from 35 to 120, and it would have been a crime not to include some 4x5 shots in there as well. So I ended up downloading all those images to my iPad and placing them in order from back to back. My favorite ones being in the middle of the images because that's technically the front of the lamp, and one of those being an alt or substitute image. At the end of the day, we ended up with 7 images in total. Now, as you'll see in a little bit, I kind of messed this part up. When you think of 4x5, what size comes to mind? 4 inches by 5 inches, right? Well, 4x5 is not actually the size of those negatives, or positives in this case. No, it's a little bit smaller. The Velvia was more like 3.8 inches by 4.7 inches. So somehow my calculations were off by 1 whole negative, positive. Sheet. I don't know, I really needed 8 images. Also, that wasn't my only mess up. Okay, so now that we have our images selected, we need to move on to our next scary step, exposing our sheet film to light.
My idea for this is to take my large format and basically shoot it as macro as possible onto my iPad to get a positive image on a 4x5 sheet. And then I get to project it, and it's gonna look sexy.
So first we need to figure out the exposure time for each individual image. For this, I'll keep the same f-stop and of course the same film speed. Our only variable being the exposure time. Then I'll focus up the camera edge to edge on the iPad. Some of my images are landscape, so I'll have to crop by pinching and zooming. Then we get to exposing.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi, 8 Mississippi, 9 Mississippi, 10 Mississippi.
Now before we continue making some art, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Freestyle. My pals over at Freestyle have been in the game for more than 75 years now, making sure that photographers and students alike get the gear they need. A ton of the items that I used in this episode can be found at Freestyle. So if you've been thinking this entire episode, damn, I need to go big, then you can find all you need to start your large format journey right there at Freestyle Photo, especially since they are the North American dealer for Intrepid large format cameras. Not to mention they have that fresh, fancy film known as Ektachrome. Anytime I'm low on film or supplies, I hop on over to their Hollywood location, but for those times that I'm feeling really lazy, I shop online because I know shipping is super fast. So whether you're shopping online for some new film, or some supplies, or even some camera swag, Freestyle has you covered. Either at their LA location or online. Now, let's get back to illuminating our lives with our images.
Well, I don't know if you can tell, but those were super clipped in the highlights. The exposure is completely wrong on all of them. Like, I mean, this one right here, like my body is see-through. Like, I want a little bit of texture. Like, you can't even see the sky here. So, I gotta redo everything. That's $50 down the drain. Yay, go Caleb, you're smart. So I'm gonna re-meter everything using the spot meter on the highlights, because that's what I want. I don't want those to be cooked. Most of these things are, you know, they're highlight oriented. So I want the detail, so I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna re-expose everything, I'm gonna check all the shots again. Man, this is getting to be an expensive project.
One thing about slide film that you might already know, but is that the latitude is very slim, unlike a negative film. So it's no wonder I had to be more tedious with my metering readings. So like I said, I went through all the images again and made sure to take a reading on the highlights using my spot meter, making sure to spend a little bit more time on each one of the images just so that it turned out the way that I wanted them to.
I'm at f11, shutter's cocked. I'm at 1/2. Okay, here we go. The very first one now. Back at it. So it's a few days later, and now I have the second round of images back from the icon. So let's get to putting this thing together. They look good now, by the way, unlike the last time. But before we can slap all the slide film in and around this lamp, I need to cut off a little bit of the top. If you remember back to the beginning of this episode, yeah, I know, it's hard for me too. You'll know that the height of this sheet film is 4 1/4, or 4.25 high, and our negative is 5 inches. So let's just do a crude little height mark for each one of these slide film images. And once we have those, we cut the tops off to size. Pro tip, instead of using scissors, you can use one of those straight razor cutter thingies. I don't know what they're called, but you can find them on Amazon for cheap. Then we tape all of the positives into place. Okay, so now we're at the end here, and somehow I miscalculated? See, originally I measured everything, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 images fit all around. So I'm just gonna use one of the best of the first passes. I mean, what can I say? Sometimes you just have to kind of go with the flow. And maybe I should just learn how to measure things properly. And looky here, we got ourselves a lamp that looks like shit until we put the tap on. Boom. I did it. Look at me. Or we did it together. So now that the lamp is totally done and illuminating my life, what are some key takeaways? Measure twice and expose once. Having that 8th image to expose would have been nice. Then I didn't have to double up one of my images. But at the end of the day, it's no big deal because it's in the back of this thing. Also, because of the nature of this format, it might not be accessible to everyone. It's only a very specific group of photographers that shoot 4x5, let alone slide film. I do think that you could do the same type of thing with 35 or even 120, maybe attaching it with jump rings. Another takeaway is that getting the exposure for the sheet film was trickier than expected, and a lot of the things just could go wrong, obviously. So one thing to keep in mind is keep your iPad's brightness the same level when metering and exposing. Also, don't let your iPad go to sleep. It makes life just so much simpler. And the last takeaway is if you plan to do this, you might as well just use brand new E100 slide film, or Ektachrome. Overall, the images I think look good, but Ektachrome would have been even more vibrant and even more, That's pretty sick. So with all this wrapping up, at the end of the day, what did this cost me? Well, provided that you already have the tools for creating this lamp, it came out to be around $220. But that was with an extra developing cycle in there, so really, if I didn't, it would have been $170. So it's priced around a really good lamp, not an IKEA lamp, like one from a lamp store. At the end of the day, this was just a fun project to make. So if you have any questions or plan to make your own, let me know below. So I encourage you to make it if you can. And if not, then I hope you had fun watching me make mine. It was a learning lesson, that's for sure. Maybe this is my new future. Etsy lamps. Okay, well, go out and shoot some. Bye.